thank you very much for joining me for this coffee with the editor. You put out the network statement. And in that comes the rail access agreements and the annexures that have been published. The network register you'll be publishing on the 7th of January. And there's quite a few things that have happened in the last week. So congratulations on making the deadline, most important. What's the practical implementation here?
No, thank you very much for the opportunity. Look, right now we're looking at receiving those applications from the terminal operating companies who want to take the opportunity of taking third-party slots as indicated on the statement. This is what we're looking at because we have opened it from the day we published, and people have got now to follow the process as spelled out in the documents. At high level, it starts with any aspiring train operating company going to the Rail Safety Regulator to get first that certificate that their fleet is suitable and fit for purpose. Then from there, they can approach us with those documentations, and we'll do our own internal checks in terms of processing to look at the human resource compliance with required standards that they have to meet when they operate in here. We have to look at their environmental plans, operational efficiencies, and also check if indeed they've got some indication from customers that they will be used. We're doing this not because we want to be gatekeepers, but it's to ensure that we do not give slots when people are just hogging the slots. But we have also built in a mechanism to deal with people who might want to hog slots and say, if we do not use it over a period of time, we will have to lose that slot. Importantly, we also have indicated that there is non-refundable application fee that gets paid 125,000 rands, which is a small amount given the amount of work that is going to be coming through. So we're looking forward to that. Of course, our infrastructure has been neglected over a long period of time. Some is not at the design capacity in terms of the capability of the network itself. So we gradually are working towards reinstallation of that capacity to the design capacity. So we're looking at the backlog maintenance that should be done, and also the maintenance that just keeps it up to standard for it to carry through this. Hence, we're becoming a little bit conservative in the number of additional slots that we're allowing in the system. We have indicated the corridors or products that can take the opportunity, but we also have made a provision for those who feel that I'm not necessarily interested in the slots that we have indicated, but on another slot, we are open-minded and will engage with those. And our view as well is that as we're doing this, we're not only targeting the users from South African boundaries only. We know that our rail and port systems does service the SADC region. So we will be looking at interfacing with those neighboring countries that have got a role to play in as far as the movement of cargo into international market is concerned.
So does that mean that you will openly allow, somebody like Botswana Railways or Zambia Railways to continue from Botswana or Zambia straight into South Africa on the network?
Yes, but that's an idea. But we're just putting across the minimum requirements, compliance issues. Everybody will be expected to comply with those minimum requirements, more so when it comes to safety and loading of trains, so that we do not create a situation that is going to be disastrous. But we are comfortable that it's something that is going to work. And we know that this is going to be a steep learning curve for all of us, managing multiple train operators from where we had only one. So there will be multiple. So the management of the potential points of frictions, if you like, is going to be key for us to have an effective oversight, but an oversight that is not going to be overbearing in terms of restricting creativity. But we just need to work with everyone to say how best we make this system to give us that kick that we want, because we have seen gradual shift of cargo from rail to road over time, and it has had disastrous results when it comes to the road network in the country, contributing to accidents, impacting the fiscus of the country in a negative way, because now money must be pumped on the roads that should not have been the priority. Now we then say, bring back the trains, so that what belongs to the train is on the train, and the government can use money elsewhere, and we save lives in the process. And we know that there's also a concern around saying what then happens to the jobs that have been created by this road tracking industry. We are of the firm view that as we have open opportunities for third parties coming in, I'm certain that people who are running those businesses are also monitoring the trends, what is changing in the market. Probably as we're talking here, they're also saying, how do we then repurpose our business to adapt to this change? So there are options for them. If they want to buy trains instead of trucks, they can come as a consultant, buy trains, get it to the slot. So the opportunity is there for all of us who want to participate in this. So we're not going to say, hey, you own trucks if they feel like coming in. And actually, they can make more money if they run short distances between the mines and the sidings.
Yeah,
Where,
that's been my belief all along, is
yeah,
that actually the trucking industry will probably double its volumes just based
yeah,
on that intermodal supply chain
exactly,
that they fit into. And not everything goes door to a train cannot come to my front door.
exactly. That's the point.
I think this will work actually well in the favor of the trucking industry. I also think, when you do the cross-border, it'll bring down a lot of the challenges that we're seeing at the border posts if our trains
Yes,
are running properly
exactly.
as they are
Yeah.
meant to. I know during Peter Week, they were talking about the One-Stop Border Post initiative, and they were talking, I think it was Botswana, and they said, 76 trucks to 300 trucks per day. And that's a clear indication that our rail system is not working.
We're on the verge of breaking into that promised future of reclaiming cargo from road to rail in a way that is going to help this region. The demand out there outstrips what we've been able to supply.
Absolutely.
So for me, I think if we do this, we're going to help our respective governments in this case to start getting tax money that they should get and start funding other programs that need to be funded.
When we talk about open access and we talk, and like I'm assuming, on the one hand, Transnet Freight Rail on the train operating side is also going to have to apply through the processes and to you, or they're just going to keep running. I'm not sure how you guys have decided how to cut that cake. That's the first thing. And the second thing is that having been on your network recently, every person who's going to be participating on your rail network is going to be subject to the same challenges. We left the depot. 2 hours out, we were stuck behind a train. That was a 5-hour delay. Further out, there was cable theft. There was another delay. So there's a lot of constraints around operating, and you as the infrastructure manager, where are you starting first, and what issues are you planning to address first?
Look, what we have looked at in the main, I will categorize the issues into three. The first issues are security-related issues. This is where there has been increasing vandalism of the network or some parts of the network you're signaling in them. So what we are doing is to focus on the security aspect, to make sure that we deal with criminals, working with the law enforcement agencies and linking this to the criminal justice system so that we don't only apprehend people, but they must be locked up so that they don't repeat. A message must be sent out there that this is not acceptable. We have then, to this effect, appointed contractors who are given a security arrangement called outcome-based security system. We should then say the better they do, the more money they should be getting from us. So there's an incentive for them to arrest these criminals. It's something that we have to do. And as part of this security arrangement, really is not only to depend on the boots on the grounds only. We also want to see technology coming in because it is through technology that you can be able to surveil a long stretch of a land with a camera and pick up issues before they really become problems. And you can do something about it. So we want to get this intelligence that will be coming from the security installation artificial intelligence to us so that it becomes a point of feedback and we deal with it. We know we cannot completely eradicate this without involving communities. Our corporate affairs department has been tasked, having identified the hotspot areas, to really be active in those communities and get them engaged in our business, because it is not only about the train that gets disrupted, it is about people that get killed in the process. And communities must know that those trains are operated by sons and daughters of fathers, mothers of children. If people understand that people who operate the trains, drivers, are human beings that deserve to be given a chance to live and provide for their families, I think it's going to have a different impact.
Yeah.
And working with these communities, those are going to add over and above the intelligence artificial that you install there. They will see strangers. They will then protect this infrastructure. We have started reaching out to the municipalities and provincial government to talk about communities that over time have started encroaching closer to the railway network. And these are the points of, if there's anything I want to put in here.
Yeah.
Our responsibility is to eliminate the points of frictions with communities.
Yeah.
Let's arrange that they move away from where they should not be so that their livestock does not get killed by trains. And also they must protect the fence that is along this line. So our corporate affairs team is going to be engaging with those communities. That is dealing with the first element, which is the security aspect. It has to be dealt with ASAP. And that's where we know that if you deal with those issues, you immediately creating extra hours of trains running. The second cause of the lost time is with articulating will be coming from the signaling. As long as from this vandalism of the infrastructure, you end up having signaling that gets affected. Therefore, you resort to manual authorization of trains. That is a tedious process. That is value destroying. So we are working hard at putting back the signaling system to where it has to be. And it must be linked with some features of the security system in a way that is going to help us to be able to get the trains to consistently be flowing. If there's any issue, a feedback must be sent to our operating centers notifying us of such. And we're looking at those nodes. Now we've identified them, high impacts areas, where if there's a signal disturbance, the impact is big. Our teams are prioritizing that as a matter of urgency. The third aspect really is the condition of the network itself. This is where engineering solution is required, because some of it is old. It ends up being now governed by putting a number of speed restrictions, which then eat onto the finite time that we have. An hour has got only 60 minutes. So if you're going to be reducing this, you eat into the capacity. So we systematically are dealing with the lifting of those speed restrictions. Some we have already lifted, but in some areas it's going to take a little bit of a while, because in some instances we have to replace wash-away areas where, due to environmental changes, some portions of our network have been washed away. So we are putting it back again.
Yeah.
We're fixing the bridges, and we are replacing old sleepers. We're replacing old railway tracks themselves. And we are also looking at the overhead cables that we have, electronic systems. So those are the three categories of dealing with this. And therefore, we then believe once, as we're working systematically to deal with these ones, operating companies will have to be disciplined, adhering to all the standards that are put in place, making sure that they don't cause nuisance in the system. And one hopes it's not going to get to where we're starting to talk penalties, triggering penalties for people who would not have complied with this, but we're wanting to make this thing work seamlessly. And gradually, we're going to increase the capacity of the slots that we are going to release for us to meet the committed budget to the government and the economy, using all these partners. TFR, you're mentioning, are part of the system. They already are in the system. We now are looking at opening up capacity for 2.4 million tons that should be taken through this process. And as we work through these shutdowns, we are going to release more and more capacity.
One of the things that I think will be most exciting will obviously be the partnerships that form between yourselves and like the mining industry, for example. I'm sure there's been talks. Is there anything you can announce yet?
No, not much, but I can give you comfort that we have a very cordial and I think very progressive relationship with the mining houses. On the ore line, we have worked with them in the previous shut. On the coal line, we've done the same thing. We're looking at doing the same thing with the Northeast Corridor where magnetite and chrome are coming in. Everybody has come out to say we want to be part of the solution. And I think this is the best scenario you can have as an infrastructure manager, where you've got people who are wanting to be in your corner instead of being your challengers. So we're going to be working through this. There are things that we're trying to sort out in as far as the governance of those relationships is concerned. Right now, for short-term intervention, we've got a system that works where we jointly investigate or assess the condition of the network, come up with a list of what needs to be done and look at it. Right now, we know what needs to be done in the next 5 years in each of the corridors, itemized, and we're looking at what we have, and we have identified a shortfall to which they should be coming in. We're discussing those. We're not at a stage where I can make any announcement because we just need to make sure that us being a public entity, them being private companies, we find a harmonious arrangement that is going to enable this to happen.
So, and I also think, you've also got the first tranche of funding from African Development Bank to start some of your rehabilitation processes. So that's quite exciting. I think the next step will then also be for Transnet to set up that SPV for the leasing. I don't know if that has gone back out for tender yet, but there's going to be a need for the leasing of fleet.
Yes, it is part of Transnet Group, the leasing of the fleet. I want to stay clear of it because mine is the infrastructure. But of course, it is our group's intention that the leasing company should be up and running to enable those who want to come into the system to go and lease. And I think it is the best way of actually lowering the barriers to entry. And if you lease what has already been approved to run on our network, it becomes much easier. So it's work that is in progress. I don't want to talk about that because it falls outside of my scope, but it is an area of interest for us.
All right. So I just want to go back to two things that maybe you can just expand on for me. One is signaling. And then how are you coordinating, is it like in-cab signaling, all the trains that are going to be moving on your network? And obviously signaling plays a big role in making sure that we don't have accidents and things like that. How are you rolling that out? Because in my mind, I feel that needs to be like a priority fast track. And I don't think it's something that's implementable in like a fast track way. So help me.
No, hence I was saying the three things that I was mentioning to you in that order of saying from where I'm sitting, I think the low-hanging security, because we've got people on the ground, they need to start arresting criminals. We need to engage communities. But coming to signaling, I mentioned it as a second one. This is where now we want to create this single platform for all these different operators to be monitored by us through one single system. Because we can't allow multiple systems. This is where you start having those points of frictions or disjuncture in terms of what we're trying to do. We must have where you see end-to-end running of trains for all these corridors. And you can pick up issues as they're coming back. Feedback mechanism is going to be key. We've got teams that are working on this already. On the 19th of December, we also had a conversation with our team that does the planning of trains and the ICT, looking at options. What then do we need to have in place that is going to help us to quickly have a much more robust signaling that now talks to multiple players instead of single player as we had it before, multiple players, and something that we are prioritizing. We will have further meetings in the new year where we want to say, how do we improve this? We've got a system that is running, but we want really to create that redundancy within it. And say it is robust enough now to take additional players for us to see, and everybody should be able to see if you're running your trains in corridor A, you must be able to view what's going on here so that you can have comfort, even way of telling your client that all is in order, you are on track to get the cargo to the port. And importantly, we want this to have an interface with the ports because we do not want to shift one bottleneck from one point of the logistics network to another, trains to a point. So these interface are happening with the ports to say, when it comes to the rail siding within the port, what should be in there so that it supports these increased volumes that we're expecting to come.
Yeah, and that's good thinking. So, I mean, it's like an end-to-end solution. It enables the whole group to really kind of properly plan. And I'm assuming you're going to put in a lot of digital tools to help you along the process.
It has to be. It has to be. Artificial intelligence is the way for that, and this is what we want to have. As you would have had on the security, we want to see this feature coming through. Operational planning, it must be coming in, and even on the maintenance, we want to get the predictive maintenance system, which will be enabled by artificial intelligence that should be on the train, on the tracks, giving us conditions before it gets worse. Then we can start planning.
Yeah.
This is the way we want to go.
And also that helps you, on two things. One, it allows you to be responsive as opposed to reactive. And it also allows you to plan from a procurement and an execution point of view.
Definitely.
Which will be great to see that change.
In fact, and if you're looking at what we want to do, which we have started with the previous charts, we now have looked at the long lead item that we need for any of the maintenance work to happen. Start procuring them and say, what is the earliest you can get them? Get everybody to focus on that. Get those in so that if we say we're taking this corridor for 5-10 days, everything is there. You don't lose time, you work. And if it means we work through the channels that customers have, which is much friendly and agile, we do that. This is part of the framework once we've agreed to, we're going to be announcing, but we have tapped onto it already in the last 2 or 3 shots that we've done on the coal line, ore line, and on the Cape corridor.
I didn't land up in Cape Town because of your Cape corridor shut down.
Sorry about that. Those days also we want to publicize so that people can then know. This period we are going to have this shut, and we also have got our own priority system that we've put in place to say people that will be on the passenger trains, priority is them, is human beings above cargo. More so when we know that there's always predictability that every Thursday this time there's a passenger train coming or tourist train. We're going to let people have earlier passage compared to cargo, then we can then follow with cargo. So all those things we're going to bring on board and find ways of working around them.
Does that mean that we'll start seeing more regional trains now from PRASA?
We've got a working relationship with them, and we are going to be looking at doing that because it is important that you coordinate the system in as much as they are accountable for the condition of their network where it matters most. But where we are co-sharing, it must be coordinated in one center, though each party is taking responsibility for its own. But from a management system, it has to be managed as one, and you can start seeing this movement coming through. Key here is to plan, no surprises. Yes. We sit and say, this is what is coming over the next period. These are the times. And everyone will have an obligation. Operators, including PRASA, must stick to time if they're going to use this. Because planning is key. Yeah. When I tell you to leave your mind, I should know that they would have cleared that passage at this point in time for the system to flow.
The use of drone technology. I picked up a post the other day where somebody was talking about the drone going out to do a quick check. Are you using drones for all aspects of the network or just on certain corridors?
In the main, focusing on 6 corridors right now, which are part of the A network. These security companies was talking about, I said we wanted to see technology being infused. One of those technology pieces is drones. Because I was saying earlier on, we want to have long-range cameras accompanied by drones. Because yes, it does help to see you a kilometer away what's going on. But if there's something that triggers response, your drone should be the next best thing to get in there before the vehicle goes in there. So we're looking at drones, and we then say we want to optimize on the insights that is going to be collected by these pieces of artificial intelligence. The drone will be there. It can give feedback in terms of what is the condition of the line, who's stealing the fence here, or something has shifted. For us to start having that proactive maintenance, predictive maintenance, because if we see some signs, it's going to be an indication to us that you are left with 5 days before this thing gets worse, move into there. So that information will come onto the same center where we process it, in the interest of not compromising the security, because I can't divulge much, but this is what we want to have.
Are you going to be moving into NOC Center, or are you going to set up a new command center?
No, we're going to build on the NOC center that we have.
Okay.
Note that we're going to be vacating the current premises at the end of June this year. So we're finding a new home. As we prepare that new home, we're going to start building in this capability that we're discussing, so that as we put onto this new one, it's really fit for purpose to help us get all these insights that we want to get from this arrangement.
Part of Trim, you're also going to be looking after the yards. How are you going to be taking over these yards, and are you going to be putting in more? Because somewhere I recall something about each operator having their own yard. So maybe you can clarify that for me.
Look, what we have just said at the principal level, that anything that is adjacent to the railway line is Trim's property, right? Then we are now answering the question that says, what value is each of these yards unlocking onto the main corridor or for the feeder lines? Then we're getting proposals from people parallel to this, where they answer the same question. We want to operate from here because we're going to do 1, 2, 3. Our interest, we then said, we just need to say, is this going to enhance the density of the line, main line, meaning that there's more cargo that gets pushed out of the port system and the rail system.
Yeah.
So we're going to look at that. In some cases, it could be that an operator of the yard is not necessarily a person who's got interest on the train, in some cases, because you do not want people who are going to use this to close the market off. It could be where it becomes consolidation centers where different mining houses can say that's where we go and we get our trains being prepared for the long haul. So we might be looking at people who will then say, we want to open it. I'm saying this because my background is coming from the port side, right, where we would then have various terminal operators who are not necessarily loyal to a particular shipping line, but are more loyal to exporting community and importing community. So the same principle has to apply here.
All right. Well, I have to tell you that I am incredibly excited, and I can't wait to see, well, one, a scheduled railway, and I don't think it's too far off. I think you have your work cut out for you, but don't think it's too far off. And I'm looking forward to seeing increased tonnages and a rail and freight corridor that works.
This is our point of focus. That's what we want to see happening. And if anything, we want to mobilize everyone from where we're sitting, starting with our own employees, get them to understand this and support this, because it is through us doing this that others are going to be enabled.
Well, I think opening up the rail network, besides the fact that right now we're all going to be constrained by the same problems, but as those are solved, I think we're going to see an enormous economic impact for the good of the people of South Africa and connecting to our continent. So within the region.
For me, there's something that I've been saying to people that hit me. I haven't checked the numbers if they are correct, but at a conceptual level, the mining industry the previous year mentioned that they lost 200 billion rands of sale. Now, that's what they said at some stage, right? If this is how much they lost, fast forward to the Minister of Finance early this year, Minister Kotongwane, making his speech, saying that there's been a deficit of 60 billion rands on tax collection. Now, you go back to that 200 billion rands and say, if that had been pushed through, 27% of that 200 billion rands would have been tax, which is 54 billion rands. Now, immediately, if you put that 54 billion rands against the 60 billion rands, the shortfall would have been reduced to 6 billion rands. And now, certainly, people would have worked and they would have had money to spend on retail and other aspects. Our country would have been better off. So it is important that everything we do, we see the country first and say, to what extent is this impacting positive on our country growing? To what extent are our customers benefiting from this arrangement? The last line is to what extent are we benefiting? We're starting with the country first, coming with the customer, and then say we should be the third one in line. Because we know if those two work, certainly we are working.
Absolutely. And on that note, I wish you a very happy Christmas, and I thank you so much for your time. And
Have an awesome one.
I
See
will,
you next year. Thank you.
yes, I'll see you next year. I want
Peace.
I want front row seats when that first train starts.
No problem. Certainly, you've got it booked with your name, Phillippa.